Yes. Hi, everybody. Namaste. Welcome. So Wednesdays, I am here doing tarot deck reviews and walkthroughs, and today is the Spacious Tarot. And I'm looking forward to sharing thoughts on this deck. I did do a side-by-side recently with the Line Escapes Tarot and the Spacious. And I know that I have used the Spacious from time to time in my live readings, perhaps as well too. This has been a deck that has, just like its name says, provides space. And so the greatest success I have had with the Spacious Tarot, if you're not familiar with it, this is the box, is that when querents are going through a difficult situation, perhaps health issues, or where I may suspect they would be uncomfortable with different cards with humans in them, I have found this to be a very gentle deck, to work with. And so what we're going to do today is I'm just going to riff and talk to you about the cards, and we will go through them at a slow pace so that I can share with you some of the experiences I've had with the deck, as well as how I might work with the cards. Today, I purchased the audio files that go with the guidebook. I wanted to hear from Carrie and Annie about their journey in creating the deck, and it is a lovely audio file. I listened to almost all of the pentacles and the major arcana. Still have a little bit to listen to, but I'm enjoying hearing it from their words, their own words. What this deck is not is an esoteric deck. That's what it is not. And I have been diving a little deeper into the esoterica of tarot as of late, and moving away from can I say oversimplified? That sounds very it's hard to put words to it, but I'm loving the astrology. I'm loving the esoterica that I have been studying, and I just find it adds so many wonderful layers. And so there's a lot of decks out there where creators don't have that knowledge base, and they go ahead and create a deck based on their interpretations of an experience with Rider-Waite-Smith and Rider-Waite-Smith clones. This is for the most part, there is a little bit of Marseille influence, as well as, I believe, one card that was Thoth-inspired. But in general, if you read Waite-Smith, if you can read a Waite-Smith deck, you can read these cards. And of course, there are more, perhaps for some of you, there is a bit of a discomfort with pip decks. And that might be one of the reasons that you requested this deck as a deep dive. But I wouldn't do a deep dive with this deck. I'm happy to talk about it today, and if I don't get through everything that I want to share, I'll do a second video. But I think it's really quite a simple deck. It's easy to understand. It's very accessible. It gives a lovely perspective. And in the description box below, I put some of the words from the little white book, as well as I believe there was something on the website. And so the intention of this deck is that you imagine yourself entering into the card. So you are holding the card, or you place the card at a distance, and you enter into the card, and you allow a sensorial experience with the card. Allow the colors to leave an impression, the space to leave an impression. Is there a feeling on your skin? Is there a smell? Can you feel the environment, the wind, the rain, the sun on your skin? And so this deck is meant to be experienced, and these spaces are meant to be experienced. It definitely can be read intuitively. Anyway, more on that. So let's start with the majors and walk through all of this. Lots of changes in color. Lots of changes in color from, what can I say, historical decks for sure. I want to say hi, everybody coming in. So Dee Dee's here and Moira, welcome, and Lala, hello. Tamiyan, yeah, this one has always been very tempting for me. I also put in order the Way Home Tarot. I thought there might be more cards I could contrast to compare today, but it's not really the case. There are lots of tarot decks out there where we enter into the landscape of the Fool. This is very similar. This is the Fool and the Way Home Tarot, where we see ourselves, rather than we see a human walking off the cliff, we see ourselves approaching the edge, approaching the precipice. Very interesting. This is the topic for tonight in the Facebook group. Yeah. And there is I'll just jump right ahead to the Judgment card. This is one of the things that the creators talked about, was the energy that links these two cards together. Different stage, different place in space and time and life, but there is very much a connection happening here. Okay. The Magician should look familiar if you read Waitsmith. We have the 4 elements that are represented. To me, there is a drawing down of energy. A drawing down of energy, both through the sword, through the wand. All of the elements appear to be suspended, and I'm not sure that the wand is doing all the work here. This one is a little tricky for me. Yes, we have the lemniscate, which is a common symbol here. We have the 4 elements. What is this a reminder of? This is a reminder of our resourcefulness. Each and all, or any of the elements, can be used to draw the energy down. You are the magician. You are the one who can be the conduit for energy. Hi, Laura. There have been, or there are, quite a few tarot decks that have this concept of shell in water element cards. Here we have the moon reflected in the water that is in the shell. Maybe you see it as a pearl. There are symbols that we can take in a multitude of different directions. We see the ocean in the background. But the piece here is, if we look at the water as symbolic of the abyss, the moon being the lunar energy, the divine feminine energy, it's small. There's also this mirror as well too, between perhaps the abyss that is contained within the shell, as well as the larger body of ocean that is behind. So yeah, a lot of the esoteric symbols are not present here, and that might make it easier. It might make it more confusing for some people. But again, I think intuitively this is quite easy to pick up on. I want to look at the Empress and the Emperor side by side. We have a concept of, there's a wildness here, free form, abundance, everything is growing. There's a strength to the eagle, the falcon, the bird that's in the background. There's a power, perhaps a level of intimidation. And so we get that sense of growth, fertility, providing a space, providing the energy for anything to thrive, and also having the power to oversee that as well too. We have fruit, right? We have berries. And if you're aware of what some of the plants are, so we have quite a few botanical cards in this deck, and that would be another option as well too, is to work with the botanicals in the deck as another layer of medicine. The Emperor card, while I understand it, there's just something about the choice of flower that doesn't really resonate for me. And yes, I understand the connection to war, the martial energy that is associated with Aries and the Emperor. I completely get that. The tall, the mighty, standing tall, the orderliness as opposed to the wildness that's in the other card. But there's just something about the poppy and opium and the, I don't know. So yes, as far as the red works, the orderliness works, the rose, the expansive ground, all of that fits. Yeah. So yeah, and then Dee Dee points out, yes, the healing plants. So echinacea in the foreground, and working with plant medicine, the Empress as healing energy. You know, if that's a direction that you want to go with these cards. We do have a couple of correspondences to this card, and I really there really is, I haven't looked at the moons. So we here in the Hierophant card, we have a waxing moon, growing energy, building energy. The sun is rising. At least that's what I'm seeing. The sun is rising behind the standing stones. The standing stones represent sacred space. The sun represents light, power, energy. And so we move into sacred space to connect with the divine, to learn, to receive, to feel. And, you know, this is a cathedral in nature. It's kind of a beautiful interpretation. I am going to have to look up tall poppy syndrome to see what that represents. Yeah. So this card connects to the Five of Pentacles. We see standing stones in the Five of Pentacles, and that definitely brings a connection here. The intention for this card is not DNA. It's not about the double helix. This is these are light beams, interconnecting light beams, and this is something that I picked up on from the, not a podcast, but the recorded version of the audio that I just purchased today, as I mentioned. What am I picking up on here? Well, we as light beings have a strength, have a power, as an individual. We touch others when we come together. We touch others in ways that we are often unaware. This is simple yet deeply profound. And these light beams go on and on. They may disappear at any time. And so this card to me feels very potent as a card of reflection. And Carrie was talking about an earlier iteration of this card where they were going to use mirrors. And I understand that as well too. In the side-by-side with the linescapes, there's a very similar image for the Chariot card, but this one is from the other perspective. So we're looking back to where we have come from, much like in a Waite-Smith Chariot card where we see the walled city behind the chariot. Right, we're not moving downstream in this image. And the rocks on either side are reminiscent of the pillars that we see in a lot of the cards in the Waite-Smith deck. The black and white horses or sphinxes or dogs as well too, a little bit darker on the left than the right. And the sun is shining through. Very brilliant. Also water. I do like a Chariot card that has the water element in it. If you are, and it's funny, you know, Carrie Mallon, the creator of this deck, mentioned how important it was that there be water in the Chariot card because she didn't understand the Cancer astrological association of the Chariot to Cancer, and so she wanted water in this card. But it's the only zodiacal sign that she mentioned in that audio guide, so I think that's funny. Oh, you live in Montreal, Dee Dee. Yeah. I think we all have different notions of that space where we are on the precipice of moving forward. This makes a lot of sense, I think, for the idea of strength. Persevering until the next water comes. The cactus stores the water. The energy is stored within. There is a sense of beauty that emerges. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. It's like, it snowed in Montreal today. I can't believe it. Wow. That is a freak snowstorm. I have seen a similar image. So on the, if you have the Lumina Tarot, this very similar image is on the 7 of Pentacles. I'm not sure that I've seen this on a strength card before. We do see other cards in the deck that have like needles. This layer of protection as well too. This layer of protection that safeguards that which is within. I kind of like that symbol. That's a good symbol. In this deck, we have quite a few scenes where we have amber, sorry, that's my dog's name. Somebody just texted me about my dog. Where we have aspen trees or birch trees. Aspen or birch trees, and we can look at all of those cards as we go through. Tall and straight. In the 3 of Pentacles, we see beneath the soil, the connection. the interconnection, the thriving, the interconnection of all that lies beneath the forest floor. I love the color in this card. What is missing in this card to me is a sense of path. The Hermit is about a journey. It's about a journey into self. And there's a stillness to this card. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't had no problem reading with this tarot deck. It just uses some of the symbols in a different way. Now, when I first saw this Wheel of Fortune, I thought that we were looking at a cut, like a log, because we do see in the Ten of Swords, lovely, we can match this card to some of the other tens as well, too. Ooh, I like that. The idea of birch trees shedding their bark gives me the sense of the Hermit's Path. Nice. And we have also in other cards, you will see the swirling energy, I believe, in the World card. In the World card. So we see the seasons, different plant life represented around the Wheel of Fortune, which to me is not a card of. And it's funny, if you look back historically about the goddess Fortuna, about the idea of fortune, was very much connected to the seasons and the success of crops and working with energy and working with nature. And of course, that brings in financial associations as well too. But I read this card as one of, it's just change is, and we find the beauty and move with change, because it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. Now look at these two cards side by side. Justice, which is kind of brilliant, feels like a very yogic sort of card that reflects on, this is the Horton hears a who kind of energy. Every drop in the pond ripples out and affects others in a way we have no idea about. This is a card that really speaks to mindfulness. Yeah, really like, this is a excellent Justice card. So one of you mentioned the mirror of the High Priestess to this card, because we have in this card we have the Earth, and in the High Priestess we have okay, so we see the moon reflected in the shell in the High Priestess, and in this card we are on the moon looking at a portion of the Earth. So yes, this is cards are beautiful reflections of each other, and we look into the expansive sky or the abyss. Perspective, a willingness to not know, a willingness to not have to know everything, to be in awe of life. Death. This is, I believe, the only card that has any humanness on it. The flower is a tribute to the rose that is on the flag and the death card in the Waite-Smith deck. There's a gentleness to those hands, to those fingers, almost as if the rose is held in reverence. I almost feel like this is honoring death. Let's honor death. Let's celebrate death. Let's let death. Let's let death. Carrie did a blog long after this deck was published about death, and I remember it, and she was a little bit riled up about, I don't know, a certain situation where this incompleteness that we have with death as humans, this inability, this resistance to allowing death. And I really like the gentleness in this, the celebrating death. It's such an important concept to let something fully complete its course. If we don't allow things to complete their course, we are playing God. We're interfering with the natural course of things. Now, in the Temperance card, we have ice and fire, fire and ice, which is really kind of a cool, this is a very mystical sort of card. One of the only things about this deck that sometimes I struggle with is the variety of art. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't fit together well. Individual cards are stunning. It's just not one of those decks that really matches up really well. And oh my goodness, the Temperance card is gorgeous. And if you read reversals, I think this deck also has a lot to offer. What's that expression? Dee Dee's asking about the lichen on the bones. What's that expression? Life will. Life. I think that's it. Just life will. The bones will decompose. New things will grow. I think it's as simple as that life goes on. And in the Temperance card, we're looking at what? Steam, smoke, transformation as well too, because the icicles overhead are melting. The influence of fire on water, the influence of water on fire. Ooh, thanks for that, Tamian. Okay, so here is another card. Like in the Hermit, we have tall trees. Carrie talked about this looking a bit like a prison, the way that the trees are there. There is this light in the distance. And so this one I struggle with, because in the Devil card to me is one where we contemplate the chains or the prison that we create. We create it. So let me read to you from the guidebook, and then maybe I can respond to what Carrie says about this card, because it's so very different than where I would ever go with this card. The Devil challenges you to enter a realm of shadows. Where are you experiencing contraction? What darkness is within and around you? Resistance might sway you to avoid this difficult space, but you can't find liberation until you are willing to confront your stuckness. The trees here form a barrier, a metaphor for the self-imposed prisons and inner demons. Are you grappling with addictive behavior? Has shame cornered you? The task here is not to rid yourself of these shadows. Instead, the devil asks you to simply acknowledge your demons, to relinquish their bonds, and to integrate the darkness into light. So all of that makes perfect sense to me. There's just something about the art. I really like the art. The art feels beautiful and hopeful. I don't sense anything foreboding in this image. So that's just a personally what I'm seeing in the artwork. Okay, so Dee Dee says not being able, the devil card makes her think of not being able to see the forest for the trees. So getting lost in perspective, not seeing the big picture, that makes actually more sense to me. I like that. And then Tamian adds the comment about the Freudian perspective. The barrier of the personal shadow. As a yogi, also the hubris. So as a yogi, so the devil to me is connected to Swadhisthana chakra. Swadhisthana, the second chakra. And monks in many traditions wear the colors of this chakra. We are taught to remain humble and to understand that the karmas will continue to appear through lessons of this chakra. And so we wear the colors of this chakra to remind us to remain humble and to always be doing the work of this chakra. You know, and it's just the art, it's just me because I spend so much time in the trees and I've never, I can't see the prison there, but I get it. Hi Perry, welcome. All right, so tower, this works. Carrie was talking about the, I call them anukshuks. She called them cairns. To me, a cairn is something where you would bury a pet, or it would be a memorial where you might put the ashes of a friend on a hiking trail. But these standing stones that people create are markers, trail markers. And there is what is this? This is like a course correction. This is a course correction that it's in our highest. Now that look at another thing too that Carrie commented on was the strong, weighty, powerful stones that are at the base. Those will always remain there. Those will remain. It's the unstable rocks above that will fall down. And I actually like this. I've never really thought about this in a tower card before. So rather than being obliterated by the tower, there's this level of deconstruction so that we can rebuild. In order to get stronger, we have to allow things to come apart. So I kind of like this card. Yeah, not kind of. I really like it. Star, guiding light, North Star. Also perspective. I think one of the things in this deck is that whole idea of perspective. So imagine yourself, summer evening, maybe you're camping, maybe you've just gone out to lie underneath the stars and you look up to this, you know, this is this is another card that helps us to remain small, humble. We are but a dot in the universe. We are but a dust, a fleck of dust. Yes. And you know, this is very interesting, what Perry is saying here. The trail markers keep people on the trail so they don't go off trail and damage the delicate habitat. It may be moss or other delicate beings. And I know some places in the world where there's warning signs, or not warning signs, but the trail markers are there. There's also like written signs, very strongly worded. Do not go off trail and disturb the natural flora. Okay, 16, 17. Let's look at the moon, the star, the moon, and the sun together. Star, moon, sun. I always like looking at these cards together. All right, so here is one of several cards that get us to reflect on connection, the mushrooms. We can also work with the medicine of the plants, the psychedelic nature of the plants, the fungi. The moon is very large here. It's like a mirror, right? It's a big mirror. Gorgeous. This card makes me think of Flowers of the Night by Sherilyn Darcy. We also, in the illumination of the full moon, have an opportunity to see life that flowers that only bloom at night. It's a beautiful invitation to be in the energy of the moon. And then we have a bluebird day in the sun card. And this feels so fresh, so fresh. This reminds me of a meditation that I do with my Reiki students, and the light that is shining down from the divine, filling us with energy. It's gorgeous. Okay, and then we have Judgment, which I showed you earlier, and the World. Another deck, so there's a couple of deck creators that Carrie mentions. One is James R. Eads. So she is inspired by Prisma Visions, and there are a couple of cards where we see portals, such as we see in the Judgment card here. And this is just magical. Yeah, love the Judgment card. And on the World card, we see the constellations for the 4 fixed signs. And there is that spiral, right, same as this card, 4 fixed signs. So instead of seeing beings, we see the constellations. Nice segue from this card to this card. And this spiral we see in the wheel card, right? And there may be other spirals in the deck as well too, that tell a story. So like I said earlier, I feel that this deck is very, it's not cohesive, but at the same time there are, oh, good night, Tamian. There are symbols that thread through from card to card. And, oh, in that blog I was telling you about, in an early version, so where is our Fool card? Here's our Fool card. Oh, did I just move the world? And we have the swirls in this card as well too. Okay, so let's put this one on the table and this one. In an early version of the Fool card, there was a stick with a knapsack, not a backpack, but you know how in the Fool, in the Waitsmith, the Fool has his belongings in a cloth wrap on the end of a stick. Well, if you take out your magnifying glass, that stick with the cloth wrap is in the very center of this circle. And I was also looking at the World card and envisioning that that force that is in the center as being something you would enter into. So you would enter into, like going through the mandorla, you would enter in through that bye Lala, you would enter in that away. Just something I was seeing. Yeah. Okay. So this is a lot of chat. I'm probably going to have to come back next Wednesday and finish this up. But let's go through the Suit of Pentacles, and then we can do some more compare and contrast next week. Okay. So Pentacle suit. There is no discussion as to why the guidebook, also in the audio files, they begin with this suit. And this is another one of those, I'm not aware of the esoterica of the whole Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles things. I can start the minor arcana in whatever order I want, and it doesn't make any difference. I love to work with the Pentacle suit as the fourth suit because of its level of integration, manifestation. There is, all of the elements are embodied in the Suit of Pentacles, and so for this to be the first suit doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Thanks, Lala. Appreciate it. Oh, did I just move the world? Yeah, so here we go. So Marseille influence. Here we have the trees again, the awareness. Oh, sorry, I'm jiggling the table. Oh, hate it when I do that. It will settle down. So this card fits in with all of the other tree cards, and that might speak to something there. But the idea is that one being cannot survive, thrive without the other. They're all connected. We are one. Yeah, so that's Ace 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I was talking about the stone circle. So here we have the stone circle and the dog or the wolf moving uphill, sludging through the mud towards the light, towards the stone circle, towards the sacred. It's a beautiful correspondence to have this card and the stone circle in the Hierophant. I also mentioned the layers of protection, the needles that were on the cactus. And here we have another card with a layer of protection that is around the pine cones. This is 4. So what is the pine cone protecting? The pine cone is protecting the seeds in the pine cone so that the life of the tree can continue and go on. But what I have learned about these cones, whether they're pine or fir or hemlock cones or any kind of cones, is that the birds get into the cones, and the birds like the seeds as well too. There are more than enough cones for everyone to share. The tree does not need all of the cones. And so this works really, really well as a Four of Pentacles energy. This Six of Pentacles, Carrie said, was inspired by the Six of Pentacles in the Thoth deck. And she says she hasn't studied the Thoth deck. So I find that really interesting. We do see the hexagram here. This theme of the hexagram is not carried through in all of the sixes. And one of the things that is offered in this deck is, towards the beginning of the little white book, there is a very simple description for each of the numbers. And for 6, a more flexible sense of stability arises here. Conflict has been dealt with and a new cycle is available. That's so interesting because that's not how I read 6 at all. I read 6 as it's a level of integration, it's beauty and harmony. And just looking at these words here, if I'm going to reaffirm stability, that's probably going to come in the double 4. I may speak to that in the 8, but definitely not in the 6. And I have no problem reading with this deck. I find it's, like I said at the beginning of the video, it's very easy for queerants of all ages, shapes, sizes, all different kinds of humans to relate to this imagery. Oh, so the idea of Didi's asking about beauty with the 6s. Let me just highlight this comment here. So 6 is at the center of the tree of life. It's at the hexagram is at the heart center, right? This place where we unite the energy of the divine feminine and then the divine masculine. And this is the place of, it doesn't get any better than this, other than at the crown in the God space. But this is, as far as the human experience is concerned, is the most harmonious experience that we can have in this world. Beauty is synonymous with grace. And Didi, if you're interested, I did a whole Friday chat on beauty. If you're on Chrome, it's a lot easier to search. I know on Safari the search function doesn't work very well, but if you go to my channel and search, just put in the keyword beauty, you'll find the video where I talked about it. But beauty in this spiritual terms refers to grace. Nine of Pentacles. There is work. There's work. There's work in pruning a tree, in the care. There's also a sense of control, isn't there? And I often think about Nine of Pentacles and wonder about the level of control in that card. Well, the Nine of Pentacles is generally seen as a positive card. I wonder as well too if there's a discomfort with disorderliness. And beyond the walled garden, there is disorder, there is nature. So that we have this interesting, it almost looks like a stage card from the Waite-Smith, right? We have this contrast between the staged garden and the wild garden. I just, 8 of Pentacles as bees has been done in many decks. The Lily White, Lily Black, this is that one. This is the Way Home Tarot. Work, mastery. And here's an example where I might bring in the idea of 4 plus 4, 4 plus 4, building the foundation. And it's interesting, I was in Tarot Foundations on Monday night. I created a Vesica Pisces spread, Vesica Piscis spread. And there is a lot of esoterica in the mathematics of these symbols and shapes. And when I think of 4 plus 4 and 2 squares upon one another, and that shape also fits into the Vesica Piscis, and which is 2 conjoined circles, and we're looking at the energy where the circles join. Why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because Carrie mentioned an energy of stability in the 6 of Pentacles, and I disagreed with that interpretation. But you can read this deck any way you want. It's a beautiful interpretive deck. That's the deck that works with interpretive readings. And you can also bring in Waite-Smith, your familiarity with Waite-Smith. Okay. Here is the 10. And if you go back to the Ace, where we had the seed, and unfortunately, I don't think this is the same tree. I think these come from maple trees. This to me does not look like a maple tree, but that's okay. It would be really cool if it was the same species in the Ace and the 10, but I get it. We have the seed in the Ace, and we have the established tree in the 10. Again, another card where we only see a small portion. We need to understand there is everything that we don't see is also connected to this story. The court cards in this deck are, the titles are changed, and they are borrowed from the Gaian Tarot. And I believe in the Little White Book there is a shout out to Joanna Powell Colbert. And they are Child and Explorer and Guardian and Elder. Each of the suits has an animal, a sigil, an animal guardian of the suit, and in the suit of Pentacles it is bear. And I will talk more about this next Wednesday, and I will start here and then I will weave into the next suit, and we can carry on this conversation. And so I hope those of you that requested a deep dive with the Spacious Tarot are appreciating this my slow walkthrough and reflections. And if you want to prepare your questions for next week, maybe I can start a little bit earlier so I have more than an hour to kind of finish off the discussion of this deck, okay? Take good care, and I will see some of you in the Facebook group shortly. Namaste.